Baller, and I got some great guests on today. You guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves? Jeff?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's good to be back again this week. Find me on Twitter at the Sofa Scout. And listen to me every week on Saturday to Sunday podcast too, where we less of a focus on Devy. We hit a quick hits there, but get a lot more onto the path from NFL prospect to pro players, and as they transition in the pro game, we kind of hit those last 2 years and those first 2 years between the transition pretty hard.
Awesome.
I'm Kyle. Oh, I didn't know if you just wanted me to jump in or what, but I'm Kyle. You can find me on Twitter at KL_fantasy. I work with the Undroppables and I run the Devy side of things. Kind of a small operation at the moment, mostly just rankings and getting out a draft kit every year at this point, but we're working to make it bigger.
Awesome, Kyle. I appreciate you. It's good to see your face. I know we're in some leagues together, and now I'll know who I'm getting beat up by. And we might have our friend Jacob on too, but he's experiencing some technical difficulties. So let's lay into it, guys. What was Jeff? Lead us off. What was your favorite game of the week?
Well, fortunately, I left Kyle his favorite game of the week, and I took the obvious one here. Tennessee, Alabama. I mean, we said before that game there was like a dozen plus NFL teams in attendance. Everyone's saying, hey, if Hendon Hooker comes in and beats Alabama, his draft stock's gonna go soaring. And guess what? I mean, hot start. We were just saying on as the game was unfolding, like they can't let off the gas at all. And just Tennessee went for it, and they did pull it out despite Bryce Young, looking a little shaky at first, but same thing we saw earlier in the season. He could carry a team on his shoulders in the second half. And I mean, when you look at these heavy hitting SEC games with major playoff implications, right? Always got to pay attention to those. I think we're gonna, at some point look into those and watch that film, right? Because that's got everybody there.
Yeah, someone already cutting it up for Dynasty Nerds, but I'm probably going to chop it up anyways because I want to see Hooker, like good Hooker, right? I want to see Young with adversity. I want to see Kobe Prentice. He went off in that game. I want to see Jalen Hyatt, 5 touchdowns cut up, giving himself a little bit of a draft boost. But I'm sure you got things to say about this one, Kyle, so go for
52 points on Alabama. Nick Saban. That man, gosh, Alabama looked like a darn high school team at points. Like the mistakes they made, that muffed punt was ridiculous. The amount of penalties they had, that's something you don't expect from a Nick Saban coach team. And that was what really stunned me about the game, honestly. I mean, I knew Tennessee's offense would be good. I obviously didn't expect 52 points. I didn't expect them to score 49 on us either, even though our defense is pretty bad. But I'll take a win any way I can get it. If it takes, their kicker not being very good, I'll take it.
Yeah, man, I saw a stat and it said the last time Alabama had got run up like that, it was like 1912 or something.
1907 against Sewanee.
I mean, that's probably also a product of that just being an extremely high score, period. But yeah, man, what a game. Those are the kind of games that make us fall in love with college football, for sure. Any other games you guys want to touch on? And I didn't get to watch that one except highlights. I was working while it was going on. I think the Auburn Ole Miss was kind of a fun game too. Defensive battle, but it was nice to see Auburn have a little bit of life, and just great to see Tank, doing things for himself, even in that just broken system, broken offense there, putting on a show. And, then Ole Miss's rushing attack's always fun to work, man. I think there was like 400 yards rushing plus in that game, 500, I think. It was a lot of fun, man. You guys got anything else? General comments, Auburn, Ole Miss, anything else?
Shout out to TCU. Double overtime win over Oklahoma State. Massive win for them. Sonny Dykes has looking like a good program down there.
Well, and a big upset on Oklahoma, Kansas too, right? Going back to Big Ten, that big win. I'm a little bit of a Dylan Gabriel fan. My wife went to UCF. I know when, it was like a couple years ago when he was like a junior, like a true junior or something, he had a little bit of draft buzz, hit by injury bugs a ton. Was really curious what it looked like him going to Oklahoma. Was out with the concussion for a little while, comes back this week, big win. So, cheers to Dylan Gabriel right there.
I like him. He can sling it a little bit. He's not going to be, an elite NFL player, but, he's a heck of a college quarterback, I think, get the offense down the field. Yeah, man, TCU's fun. Max Dugan, like, how about quarterback stories, right? Like, that guy was left for dead. He lost the starting job and then just obviously has gelled with the coach there in that system, and love to see him firing it. So, all right, guys, you guys got stars of the week, and like last week we were taking this more from like a breakout rising star perspective, but I want you guys to talk about what you want to talk about. I don't want to get yelled at by Jake for picking a rising star that's someone that's well established. So why don't you go and give it a shot first, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we know the name already, Mario Williams, but it's been the Addison show to start the year. And then, Williams has really come on the last 2 games lately. And he hit, I think, about 145 yards receiving this week, which is, the high watermark for his career, right? So he just had a career game and, unfortunately losing effort for USC, but, faced up against a good Utah defense there and still racked up the points, still racked up the yards. And I think what we're seeing is a more balanced approach for that USC offense that isn't just kind of run out of, one guy there. And so we needed guys to step up. I was really curious if Williams would do it or not this year. I thought that was going to be a question, especially with Addison coming in. I'm glad he's kind of emerging.
Yeah, definitely add something special to that 24 draft class. I mean, him and Worthy both with a little bit, similar game just in terms of the smaller, agile, lightning quick guys. I see in big capital letters your guy on the show sheet here, Kyle. So take it over.
We have to talk about Jalen Hyatt. 6 receptions, 5 touchdowns, 207 yards. Just decided he wasn't going to catch anything if it wasn't in the end zone. I mean, build the statue, put it at midfield, make them play around it. That was that kind of performance that Tennessee needed. That's going to make him a legend forever on this campus. And then also got to shout out Dalton Kincaid over at Utah. Yeah. Massive college fantasy output for me. Like 50 college fantasy points, I think. That line was 16 receptions, 234 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, after Brant Kuthi went down, he's been the benefactor, and he's taken a hold of that job very handily.
Yeah, we've been watching that battle like all year at Saturday to Sunday too, Keat and Kincaid. And this is just, we've been wondering like, okay, pass catcher, athletic weapon, how's he going to really break out? And like, I mean, we saw a couple big breakout games here and there sprinkled in from the tight end class, but we don't have a lot to get excited about. And I think Kincaid's really giving us something else to at least hang our hat on for this class, which is, it's pretty great.
You think Kincaid comes out for 23 draft?
I think it'd be a good year for him too, but we'll see.
Where are you guys at on Hyatt? Do you think Hyatt's an NFL player? I mean, it wasn't really, he had hype a couple years ago and then kind of faded off with Tillman's ascension. But you guys think he comes out this year?
I thought he was an NFL player 2 years ago, back with Pruitt and Garantano or Bailey or whoever was playing quarterback back then. But obviously Josh Heupel didn't use him last year, and it was kind of confusing. You had guys like Jimmy Callaway, Ramel Keaton playing over him, and now it seems he's jumped back over those guys coming into this season because he's been getting more snaps than both those guys. So I think if he keeps playing like that, there's no question about it. He definitely has the speed to be in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's it for me too. I mean, this is a great breakout here, but it's got to be one of those things where we see him and Hooker start really carrying Tennessee themselves further, right? I certainly think that's possible. I don't know how high he'd really hit in my ranks, like maybe round 4 if he really just kind of goes on a tear for the last month or two, but I think that's what we're going to be watching for. See, is this just the like Kyle said, this is one of those you have an all-time performance that makes you a legend on campus, or is this one where you really take it as a springboard? It's a little bit of a good question.
I'm sure it's attracting attention from scouts, at the very least. Like you said, 12 NFL teams were there. Kind of feels like a Senior Bowl guy to me too. I don't know. I haven't seen if he got the invite. I'm sure he will if he hasn't. Look to see that. And then not to skip my guys and be brushed over them a little bit earlier, but Tet McMillan, one of the top ranked freshmen, had his first real big blow up game. 7 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. He's second in yards in the class right now, if it's like 380 or something like that, behind Jaden McGowan. And man, I love the kid's game as a prospect, like big alpha outside receiver, and he's living up to it so far. And I'm just going to throw in there, I think you said earlier pre-show you didn't know how crazy you were about Jayden DeLore as a quarterback, but that system is producing and it's working, and he's good enough to spread the ball around to Singer and McMillan and Cowling. And, it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's definitely going to boost the draft stock for those wide receivers. And hopefully, Cowling and Singer both get a shot. Singer probably the wide receiver one next year, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned about, my reticence on DeLore. I think he's a good college quarterback. I mean, you go 404, you got to get a shout out, right? It's just one of those ones where it's, the mind-bending mistakes. I think we talked about it like a week ago or something too, but he's got 3 really standout wide receivers. We have Cowing in this class, and we have Dorian Singer kind of in the 24 class, and all 3 of them are really, stepping up as pass catchers to make that a dangerous offense.
Yeah, I love it. You got anything on Arizona, Kyle?
I like Jayden DeLore. My secondary team, very oddly enough, is Washington State. I think, although I love Cameron Ward, Washington State kind of did do Jayden DeLore kind of dirty this offseason. I think he deserves all the success in the world. My one worry is his height. I'm not sure he's built like an NFL quarterback, but he does have a decent arm and makes some good decisions most of the time. So at least a good college quarterback.
Yeah, man. All right, let's slide into our core segment this week. We're going to talk about the top 10 Devy quarterbacks. Sorry, I don't have the fancy graphic for you guys out there, but we're working up the spreadsheet. More people watch this, I will start building out templates and get fancier. Not worth it for the 5 of you, although I love you. All right, so this was our composite average of the 4 of us. Jake did the rankings as well, although he is not in the room with us because, again, his mic is on the struggle bus. And this is the ranking. If you want to, we'll show our individual top 10 rankings, and we can talk through those a little bit. And I'll also pop these in the chat on YouTube and probably in the Twitter channel, wherever we go. But we'll start from the top. Looks like not unanimous, but because Jake brought the ranking way down. So CJ Stroud from Ohio State was our consensus QB1, although only one of us actually had him at QB1. Who wants to talk about Stroud first?
Give it to the guy who ranked him 1. Yeah,
I'm the one for him at 1, so I guess I'll take it. Obviously, when we talked about Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in this last NFL draft class, we had scouts go to the Ohio State Pro Day, and they were just gushing about CJ Stroud during those guys' passes. So that's kind of the only reason I have CJ Stroud ahead of Bryce Young. I think they're both great players, but just from all that buzz last year, it was always we like CJ Stroud more than Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young's really good, but there are some pieces of both of their games that I don't think they've completely proven they can do, and that's mostly just because they're in such great systems. They don't really have to freestyle. They barely get pressured. That Tennessee Alabama game had me pissed off because we could not get to Bryce Young. We couldn't lay a finger on him. So I don't know. It's really close between the two, but I just lean Stroud just because it seems to be what the NFL thinks.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, I think I went Young one, Stroud two, and I think it's just that we see Young have a little bit more wheels. I think from a fantasy output, that gives you a couple outs, but there's a big question on size and frame, right? And it's been a big conversation on the NFL side, this season when you see Russ not throwing over the middle, and so I'm sure some teams kind of have some questions about that, but we're still breaking molds here as the NFL advances in its sort of idea of what players can do and building around strengths of players. So for me, it was take that, think that the team could work around, what Young does really well, including his rushing upside. But Stroud will be your sort of more prototypical guy that, teams may fall in love with first. So honestly, I have to kind of go with the 23 class, and maybe we'll talk about it when we hit kind of players from, the more Devy and CDC side of things. But those two at the top of the 23 class are the two for me that I think you gotta put on tier one.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys, and honestly, I agree with both of you. I think Stroud goes first. I think he's more of the prototypical, NFL size, stature, and frankly, too, I did a first run at my quarterback data model today with what we have for data to date, and Stroud came out significantly better than Young. I didn't have time to mess around with it and really look where that bias was coming from. But, Stroud was near the top of the past 10 classes, and Young was, well within the range of a solid NFL quarterback, but certainly a little bit lower. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything bad to say about Stroud. He's been nothing but good since those first, 4 games he had where he's a little bit shaky and makes all the throws, reads the field well, everything we want. So I think it's like we're going to transition into Young here, obviously. And you guys kind of all touched on a little bit too. But the one thing that I think that puts Young ahead for me, I mean, one, I do love he's a little more of a rusher, although Stroud certainly is a mobile guy too. We've seen him take off. The first time he hit the highlight reels was a 60-yard touchdown run or something from him as a freshman. But I feel like also we've seen Young succeed with a poorer surrounding cast. I mean, certainly they've both always had stellar offensive lines in front of them, which does always make me a little suspicious of what these guys look like when they go to the Carolina Panthers and they're running for their lives, 40 snaps a game. But last year that wide receiver core, after Jameson went down, really, they just weren't experienced guys weren't executing well, and Young still moved the offense, moved the chains, obviously not as well as when he had his, 1,200-yard receiver. But, I just thought he was able to put the team on his back when he had to. And not that Stroud can't, we just haven't seen him do it. So it looks like our consensus number 3 is Caleb Williams. Jake, Jeff, I know you and I talked about Caleb a lot last week. So, Kyle, what do you think about Caleb? You got takes?
I wish Jake was here to expand on his number 1 ranking, but I actually don't disagree with him that much. I don't hate the idea of having Caleb Williams at number 1. I just tend to side in Devy with players that'll join my roster sooner. So I would have him in the same tier as Stroud and Young in terms of ability. I just side with players that'll be on my roster. But yeah, Caleb Williams, hell of a quarterback, hell of an arm, absolutely developing in that Lincoln Riley system, which has produced plenty of NFL quarterbacks, despite the success and non-success of some of them.
Yeah, I'm right on board with Kyle there. And I think even if you shifted this from Devy to sort of campus to Canton, I could totally see ranking Caleb Williams 1 while you get that production, right? I think for me, I'm with Kyle on having those players hit your roster sooner. The other thing is, when you go through a player's development, right, they always go through learning curves, right? They hit plateaus, and there's always something that kind of crops up at some point in time that they're adjusting to again, right? And I think we've it's been hard to say that for CJ Stroud, but we've seen Bryce Young hit that, right? You've talked about his supporting cast, which is just crazy to say that Alabama hasn't had enough wide receivers for him to throw to, right? Like that's insane. But we've seen Williams have to like go through struggles, learn how to adapt, learn how to overcome those, right? And I think, we're just, the further out you are from a prospect's, draft stock. I mean, didn't we see it last year with like Spencer Rattler, right? And he hit that obstacle. He was the top overall guy. Like everyone was super excited about it. He hit those obstacles and he couldn't get past them, right? And I think there's always a risk of that, especially with young quarterbacks. I have Caleb Williams ranked 3. I think could be ranked 1, especially in Campus to Canton, because I think he's going to be able to do it. It just, what I've seen this kid put on tape is he's got special tools and special throws. But I think anytime we start talking about like 23 class versus 24 and 25, and especially like down to the 25 class, right? We've got a couple names there that might pop up too. That's something that I always take into account. And especially when I talk about it from even the NFL side too. Young quarterbacks coming in, they're going to struggle at times. They're not going to be, there's a reason that pros, that are on their second, third contracts, that have been around 6, 7, 8 years have stuck around.
Yeah, for sure. And, one thing that I think is pro Caleb for me as well is just that Lincoln Riley has had such a good track record of developing these guys and preparing them for the NFL, right? I mean, yeah, Baker Mayfield has had his ups and downs, but Kyler has had more success than not, certainly lifted that team from what they were before his draft. And even Jalen Hurts. And for me, too, look at the difference between Jalen Hurts at Alabama and Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma. He really, really improved as a passer during that season there. And I think that kind of has helped create the guy that he is now. And he's, I don't think anyone's arguing about him being an NFL quality starter at this point. So, I think Caleb's got all the talent in the world. Yeah, you love the rushing upside. I mean, for me, he's who we wanted Trey Lance to be. Not that Trey Lance doesn't have a shot to work out, but he's that archetype for sure of just the beautiful deep ball, the rushing ability, and he's seeing the field well and making plays. So nothing to dislike about him for me. No surprise, Quinn Ewers is coming in at our consensus number 4. This is all pretty chalky right here, but I think there's a good reason for that. Who wants to lead off on Ewers?
I think after these top 3, those top 3 are kind of the ones that we feel really confident about, at least myself. And then after that, we're breaking into question marks. Quinn Ewers has only started 4 games. He's had some injuries, a very light injury that caused him to miss a couple games this season. But obviously, we loved him as a prospect. I mean, there was a reason he was one of the highest rated quarterback prospects of all time coming out of high school. His high school tape shows an arm that is fantastic. He showed the ability to make plays in space in high school. Obviously, his high school tape even is limited because he had injury issues in high school and declared a year early. So, like, Quinn Ewers has all the talent in the world. I don't think I have the amount of snaps that I want to see in order to crown him king yet. Obviously, that Alabama game was huge for me. I had him in my top 10, but I moved him up to 4 after that Alabama game because he was just lights out before he got hurt. And then he did the same thing against Oklahoma. And I was impressed by how much he was able to battle back against Ohio State this weekend. Or Iowa State, rather.
I think, we were talking, I think they win that game against Alabama if he doesn't get hurt, maybe even comfortably, right? And we'll get down to Hendon Hooker probably, but that's sort of, if you beat Alabama, your draft stock goes, rocketing up, right? But I'm right there with Kyle. Like, you're right. There's injury issues and we haven't seen enough. And so maybe I have a question because I think these next 2 guys are sort of in the same type of conversation for me. We've seen more from Drake May. So maybe a question back to Kyle. I did the same thing, but why Ewers over May if we've seen more from May?
Yeah, I think it just has to do with the high school tape at this point. I mean, Quinn Ewers went and dominated the Elite 11 stuff and all that kind of all the camps and whatnot. I mean, scouts were just enamored with him coming out of his high school. So that's pretty much most of what it is. It's still the remnants of that high school hype that's keeping him above the game.
Totally, the priors there. I think with May, I don't know, maybe I'll have to flip it because I think you kind of convinced me that just put a little bit of caution on Ewers. I think his last game just got me a little excited, but with May, I mean, we've really seen him. The only reason UNC's actually winning games is because Drake May can ball out, right? Like, and he has to. Their defense is atrocious, right? And he can get it done in a ton of different ways. Like, he's got so many different like solutions on the field, and just that mobility and like the way that he can, the way that he can solve a problem in a multitude of different ways may make me. I guess I'll wait till the end of the season. I think right now they're in the same conversation to me, and maybe we'll reevaluate this at the end of the season and see, has Ewers done enough to confirm those priors, or if he gets dinged up again, misses a couple more games, or does he win a natty, right? Like, that might be the difference between ranking Ewers above May or not.
And I'll fire back and ask, has Drake May played a defense that's legitimately good? He definitely hasn't played a defense at the same level as Alabama. I mean, he played Miami and he had 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. So I'm still hesitant with him, even though he has elevated that offense. I mean, he's played Florida A&M, App State, Georgia State, a Notre Dame team that kind of sucks this year, Virginia Tech, Miami, and Duke.
Yeah, I thought the Notre Dame game was one where he had to step up and do a couple things there, but I'm with you. I think that that's fair. The Miami one too. It hasn't been Alabama, and Ewers looked great at Alabama, but it's really for May, what I have seen more of his tape like coming back, and it's not necessarily the level of competition, but the level of like the quality of problems solved, right? It hasn't been Alabama's defense, but the types of throws that he's put on, the types of windows he's thrown into, the types of elusiveness, evasiveness that he's had when making guys miss, has just been, in my mind, like, there's been NFL problems that he's solved. And Ewers has too, but like you said, we've seen more from May. And I did in this exercise put Ewers ahead of him. And I think it's just right now, it's really hard to separate the two. And it's probably one where, again, where do they take their teams? I think Ewers has a higher ceiling to really propel his stock the highest because of the team he's on and the where he can maybe take them.
Yeah, these are really good points. You guys are getting my gears going a little bit. I mean, I know for May, he did great even without his wide receiver one, right? Like, those first couple games where Downs was out, and not that I like Paysor, right? And Omarion Hampton's a great weapon, but I don't think any of us would try to say that May has had more to work with than Ewers in terms of offensive pieces around him, right? Like, Bijan is by far the most talented piece on either team, and I think it's fair to say that Worthy is at least nearly as talented as Downs, if not more. We've seen more from Downs right now, just in terms of taking over games. But, I mean, geez, we're going to look at some Worthy tape in a little bit with him dropping, over 102 on, a pretty decent team. So, I think Ewers has a better deep ball. I think he's just got that feel that is, seeing these guys and that coolness. But, man, May is awesome at feeling pressure. He's awesome at, touch passes and work in the short and intermediate area. A little more mobile than Ewers, at least what we've seen. So I think there's a lot of arguments to put May at 3 too. I think there's something that we'll learn more about as the season goes on, like you guys said. But I'm certainly evaluating it hard right now. So Hendon Hooker, right? Consensus number 5, and I'm kind of, honestly, I wasn't sure that we would all land there. I kind of got in here first, and I wasn't that high on him until the past few weeks. He certainly didn't look awesome in the game against Florida with him and the Richardson duel. I mean, like he looked better than Richardson, but I didn't think he was phenomenal in that game. Just going in and editing with Richardson.
No, I think I had 2 9s. I think I had him all there already. I think I typed over it, but go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries at all. But I haven't gotten to grind a ton of Hooker film, but obviously you see the highlights, and I don't think there's a better deep ball in college football, mobile. I'm impressed, but also I'm always going to be a little hesitant because, he's old enough to have grandchildren, right? So I don't know. Jake, Kyle, tell us about your man.
I do hesitate with that statement you made about the deep ball. He has one of the more accurate deep balls I've seen, but that arm's not the same caliber as plenty of other prospects we're talking about. That and the age are where my unbiased opinion, if I were to have one, would be hung up on, is the age and the arm strength. Also the system. I mean, that scheme that Heupel runs that gets the defense off balance, and then it's quick passes that very few reads at some points. So I do kind of worry about Hendon Hooker, but the thing is that man is just so accurate with the football, knows where to put it, where his receiver can get it and get upfield. And that's just a skill that makes you successful at the NFL level. I mean, we've seen, Tom Brady succeed off that skill for years. And that's kind of why I'm not so worried about the age. Like if he does that in the NFL, he can still have a long career. Because obviously it's not based on necessarily athletic talents, but also, processing and just ability to place the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I couldn't get him yet, above Levis and Richardson. And when you talk about deep ball, I still think Levis has one of the more beautiful deep balls, in my opinion. But part of it is, and I think it's a good question between him and Richardson. I had Richardson one spot ahead of him going in. You saw the rankings. It looked like I changed that. But, I think that's a great conversation. For me, I still feel a little bit more confident in the NFL's opinion of Will Levis and his potential draft capital. That's pretty much the reason that, I'm hedging there with having him as still like the third quarterback of the class. But when we talk about like the other top 5, Richardson, Hooker, like those 2 players right there are very fascinating. I don't think Richardson comes out this year. I love the tools. I love the flashes that he puts on there. I think all we're looking for is a little bit of consistency and seeing him put it all together. And that could happen by the end of the year and we could see him come out. And I think teams are going to be extremely intrigued because we see them go after those toolsy guys now, pretty frequently, as long as they've shown a little bit of ability to, lead a team in big moments. But that's exactly what we're talking about with Hendon Hooker now. And I'm pretty sure as soon as we start hearing that Hendon Hooker buzz in the NFL circles, he'll probably raise up above a guy like Will Levis in my mind. Kyle puts the unbiased, pretty unbiased concerns for a fan really well. Those are the things that we've got to keep an eye on. But yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting, 3 to 5, ranks in the top 5 of this class, and putting a little bit of excitement around this 23 quarterback class.
Yeah. Sorry, Cal. Go ahead, man.
Here's the thing at this point. He just beat Alabama. He's going to be the odds-on favorite for the Heisman at this point. If he wins the Heisman, there hasn't been a quarterback who's won the Heisman who hasn't gone in like the top 20 since like Tim Tebow. So, I mean, I think the draft capital will be there if he continues to play the way he is. And the other thing about him, he's thrown like 4 picks since he became the starter at Tennessee in a season and a half. That's really impressive, and that's obviously a great skill to have.
Yeah, I mean, I slid him above Levis today when I was working through this. I've had Levis ahead of him, but for me, and I guess we're going to kind of slide into the next few guys here too. But Hooker put this signature game on tape. You know what I mean? Like put the team on its back, overcame a powerhouse. Put a stamp on. Right. This is you call it his Heisman moment. Definitely something that that everyone's going to be able to point to and say, look, Hendon Hooker can do this. I don't think Levis has done that this year. I think Levis is playing a lot better than he did last year, but he hasn't had that moment that we're like, oh, snap, this guy's a star, right? And then just on these two too, I'm tempering my enthusiasm on the 23 class because the model hates both of these guys, like has them barely within, NFL range. Not that my model's flawless, right? Like the correlation on it's like 0.4 right now, which is, significant, but, it ain't law. But Levis, I remember, was in like Daniel Jones range, and I can't even remember where Hooker came up. So, I they're going to get drafted, right? I mean, but my question is, like, as a Devy or C2C player, are these the kind of guys that, like, I should let them get drafted and then immediately trade away? Like, they might be in that category. Any final thoughts on this, or do you guys want to talk about, Richardson and McCarthy are tied, so I guess we can slide into Richardson.
Well, I trust Kyle. Being a fan, like he's probably watching every snap and he's probably rewatching those games as they come out, and he's probably watched that game like 5 times now, which is great. But
I was a little too under the influence for that.
Well, that makes sense too, right? You got to be celebrating that win. It's really hard to actually, dig in on a prospect profile. Like every now and then, I get enough time to actually grind a little bit of tape for a game or two on a targeted prospect. And so, with Hooker, I haven't gotten into that point yet. I have done that with Levis, and I think we talked about it last week. I had questions about Will Levis, but I do think he fits the profile of an NFL quarterback, the way that, they're going to want to draft one. And do I think Will Levis will be a successful NFL quarterback? I have my questions, but, I've also been harping for the last like several weeks, you always have to ask yourself, what if we're wrong? Right. I'm not the biggest Will Levis fan, but what if I'm wrong? Like if the NFL thinks he is, and I could be wrong, like we have to keep that in mind. So I think that's just where this conversation has to kind of go. And, obviously like with Hendon Hooker, Joe Burrow broke out super late, had a magnificent season, got himself drafted 1 overall, and is a superstar, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not saying we're talking Joe Burrow here, but like we have to have not every path to the NFL is the same, right? Like those profiles look the same at certain times, but everybody takes a different route, man. And that might just be like what we're seeing here with Hendon Hooker, just a different route to the NFL, but one that shows a guy who could play, and maybe he gets there. And, like Kyle says, some of those intangibles, those are the things that you don't always pop out on film, right? You see Anthony Richardson breaking a 75-yard touchdown run, and, everybody's going to get excited about that. Good decision making, knowing where to place the ball, knowing where not to make mistakes, right? Like mistakes show up, good plays show up, but the good intellect to not make a mistake almost never shows up unless you really like dig down into the tape, grind deep. And I haven't done that with Hooker yet, but it could really be the case there, and it might be showing up in numbers here with those 4 picks.
Yeah, I think it is, and I'll send you guys the link to what I have going for the model. But like Burrow, even though he broke out late, like is still substantially within the acceptable range of my model. I think partly because those best year, final year stats for him were just so amazing that they really jacked it up. And he didn't really have a long track record of playing poorly, right? Didn't play that much, played a little bit, as a junior, right? And then
he also had Jefferson and Chase too. Yeah, he had Jefferson and Chase to throw to as well.
Yeah, that helps. That helps. 3 NFL players on your skill positions are gonna or 4, right? Are gonna help you. So I guess we're at Richardson. We've talked about him a little bit, so I guess let's resolve that conversation. But we talk about McCarthy, and it's like you're saying on Hooker, right? Like I don't have a highly informed opinion on Richardson. The tools are awesome. The one game I got to watch a lot of was that Tennessee game where he made some plays, but he made a lot of mistakes too. So I didn't leave that feeling awesome about him as an NFL player, but I think I kind of agree with you. And I think this isn't an outlandish opinion that he's probably going back, and he doesn't have very many games as a starter, tons of time for him to improve, and tons of flashes of the good traits that give me hope that he will, round out the edges and become a good NFL player.
Yeah, I'll jump in then. It's been more about consistency, right? And yeah, first year as a starter, it's really going to depend how he closes out this season, right? When does it start clicking for him? Like that could happen in a couple weeks. He could start really putting it together. Maybe the coaching staff and him start figuring something out, right? Like that's been a little bit of give and take, in some of these games. And if they start finding a way to really blend that well, what he does and how the offense gets called, maybe he catapults himself up into a contention for potentially going into the NFL and being at some point a round one pick. I think even right now, if he were to go in, like you got to think that he could at least hit like Drew Lock's draft capital, right? I certainly think playing in the SEC and being in some big moments puts him in a category above Malik Willis, right? And so I think the question for Richardson is how does he want to take his development? Like where does he want to develop?
With NIL and stuff, I think there's a lot of arguments to stick around. He's probably getting paid okay. And, I'm sure a lot of people are going to look at a lot of these quarterbacks are going to look at Malik Willis and Sam Howell and what happened last year and make a really hard decision about coming out or staying. Kyle, you got anything on Richardson?
I hope he goes pro. I don't want to play him next year. That man has so many tools and he's so like you just put the ball in his hands and stuff happens sometimes. And while he does struggle, and I think that's a very serious knock on his draft stock. If he ever gets a chance to play in the NFL, he's going to give you fantasy points. He's going to have a rushing floor of 60 yards a game, just 6 fantasy points, which is ridiculous. Kind of that Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson-esque thing. We're even kind of seeing it with Geno Smith this year. For some reason, Geno is putting up points every week. So he is just that Konami code guy where I'm so excited about the tools that I have him ranked 8th just because he can turn into that. Obviously, he has some steps to take, but if it all clicks for him, we're talking about Cam Newton MVP level seasons where he's the QB1 in all of fantasy football and just ridiculous stuff. So that's why I have him ranked as high as I do.
Yeah, fair enough, man. All right, so we kind of skipped into some of the later guys, but JJ McCarthy, I know Jeff and I have talked to him about a little bit. I'm a huge fan. I think a lot of the things that I love to see in an NFL prospect with pocket presence and reading the field, getting through progressions. We're seeing a lot of that from him. I have questions still, but I think he has as much promise as any other young passer that we've talked about. Jeff, you're pretty high on him, right? Do you want to talk?
Yeah, I mean, I think last week's episode kind of gave enough about it. There is a question about him developing at Michigan or not, but we see throws, right? And I guess the biggest question will be him being an underclassman and all. Like we praised Ewers in May, and their Caleb Williams is already there too. So how high is he going to really be able to carry his draft stock? But so I think there's some questions there. But this is kind of from a tape player's perspective. I think I've seen some flashes.
Yeah, awesome. Kyle?
I'll be completely honest with you. I've watched about a game and a half of Michigan this year. So a lot of my I have him at 15 right now. Obviously, I'll have to watch him and then we'll make another decision. But I worry. I don't trust Jim Harbaugh to develop a quarterback. From what I've seen, it looks like defenses sell out to stop, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards in the rushing attack. So I kind of worry he's just had some easier reads of guys who are just open because the linebackers are so far up. But yeah, I'll definitely have to watch him again.
Yeah, I got tape on my YouTube, so definitely check it out. And I got like the raw and stuff if you ever want to manipulate it at all. So I promised Jeff some film, and I know he's got to go. So any quick comment on Drew Allar from the two of you? 30 seconds.
Good player. Showed up in that. He got a chance to play in the Purdue game, I think, and looked really good. Threw some great throws.
Yeah, he finally got on the field. This is about what Kyle was talking about with Ewers, right? There's promise, right? There's allure. There's we like this guy. We haven't seen him confirm our priors yet, but we could, and we could very soon. So, I think right now this is kind of a leap of faith still, but I don't feel too bad about that bet.
Yeah, the track record for number one ranked quarterbacks by 247 is pretty solid, and he was that in this class. Although there was a lot of disparity from the different recruiting sites in this class, which you don't see as much. Yeah, I'm excited to watch him play. So I know I was excited to see some Xavier Hutchinson. So we do a film review every week for anyone's tuning in that hasn't been here before. Jeff's a big film guy. I love film. I'm not sure I'm as sharp with it as Jeff. And Kyle, I don't know if are you a big film guy, or do you come more from a data perspective?
Try to mix them both together as much as I can, but
yeah,
probably not as smart as a lot of other people in terms of film.
You know what? I think practice, experience, and keeping your eyes and ears open and learning, right? I mean, I'm no wizard with it, but I certainly can pick up on what people that are more experienced in the sport than I am are saying and look at it. So we're going to take a look at, a few players from Iowa State, Texas last week. Xavier Hutchinson, we spoke about him a little bit earlier. And the kid has just been lighting college football on fire. Literally the most consistent wide receiver in the league. I got to cut this film up earlier today while these guys were show prepping for me. And I think there's a lot to like about his game. Jeff, you'll be pleased to know I figured out the YouTube controls so I can back up and go forward if you guys wanted to see him again. He does do some good work after the catch. I wouldn't say that's his game. But one of the things that stood out to me so far is just the hands, man. This kid does not drop passes very rarely. And nice catch radius, make some big athletic catches like this one.
He did have one really ugly drop in this game.
He did.
I'm okay with a few ugly drops here and there, especially if you're able to catch when you've got contact from defenders, right? That's not something you see on a lot of some of the more elite college football prospects from elite programs. You have to go through a ton of games in Ohio State's film, to get where is Chris Olave catching through contact, right? So just like those, we saw 2 or 3 right there, where he's got a defender kind of in his hip pocket, sort of dragging him down. That's something that you see at the NFL level all the time. So yeah, I mean, those hands I think are showing out a little bit here. Looks like they're getting him a few schemed looks. That's always nice because that they care about what he's doing for their offense there, but that's kind of empty production unless you really see some talent on the yak stuff, which it's a little bit choppy here, so it's kind of hard for me to see all the way through, but looks like good hands positions there, going back, attacking the ball. Did he make that catch down the sideline there?
The sideline's out of bounds, I think. Although he did have one really nice sideline walker in this game. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Just tons of he's got guys draped on him a lot. You do see him get a little bit of separation on some of the in and out breaking routes. But he's either covered by the top cornerback, or he's doubled, with safety help on a lot of these plays.
Yeah, he goes out, he attacks the ball so that you can get separation, not just space between the defender and their bodies, but even just with your wingspan where you attack the ball, right? You can get yards of separation just by being able to get the ball out in front of it, but not waiting for it to come to you. So we saw that a little bit. The other thing is I think it's really hard to kind of learn, separation without seeing the all 22,
Right.
understanding the whole story about the route stem. So, I think that's great. Like you see a lot of zone beaters on the broadcast tape like this. So, there you go. That's like a really good finding the soft spot in the what looks to potentially be a cover 2 here. So that's like a good that's a good piece right there. Let's see if we get okay. That one looked a little
that was amazing.
Yeah, he didn't get off that press really well. Good catch, but didn't get off that press really well.
No, yeah, he got jammed pretty hard. I know what? How did he get around the guy? I wish we had the all 22 because he just gets outside leverage, right?
I think it's just bully ball there. I think just kind of.
Yeah, they did that a lot with him on 3rd and 4th down when they needed a conversion. They'd, have him go outside at about 10 yards deep, just kind of little flag out route, and just go up for the ball.
Yeah, it's kind of telling it's telling the quarterback goes to him instead of the flat there, right? I mean, he's got the flat for the first down, and he's throwing a jump ball to Hutchinson.
Yeah. So this is the really bad drop, I think.
Oh no!
Oh, he doesn't come up with this. Oh yeah! Oh man, that's game too, right? Damn near it, 2 minutes left.
You hate to see that. I'm gonna have to do this when it's a little less choppy and kind of see what kind of really goes wrong there. Whether it's like him trying to adjust to a ball where he doesn't expect it, or what's his technique there over the shoulder. Is it ball tracking concerns? That could be the case too there. If that's the case, it doesn't, it's usually not good for a prospect profile. If you listen to some guys I trust, like if you can't track balls over your shoulder like that, it usually doesn't bode well. But that doesn't necessarily mean he couldn't work through, underneath middle of the field possession receiver kind of style. But it would really limit like what he could do. Yeah, I have to look at that one like a little bit, when we're not streaming together, because I think we get a little bit of a we're getting a little bit of like skipping a few frames here.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he brought it into his chest, but like I'm not sure why he jumped. I feel like he probably could have caught it in stride. I don't know if there was some judgment there. It might be a little over my head in terms of
I don't see him, but I don't see him losing his feet here. But again, it could be just
on the previous one, Jeff.
Oh, gotcha.
On the previous one, yeah. He definitely jumped for it, but he jumped it and then caught it at chest level. It's like,
I was talking about good hands positioning. Like that might be one of those scenarios that he doesn't have it. So if that's way more easy to correct than if he couldn't track the ball. So it's going to be really interesting to see if that, like, how often that shows up.
Yeah, definitely some nice work in traffic there. In terms of rack ability, love to see that.
Best spot was actually coming in right on back to the quarterback, right? Like, so instead of just sitting in the zone and kind of letting defenders kind of break on the ball, is you see that with like Deebo Samuel a lot, right? He comes in, he breaks back to Jimmy Garoppolo and makes Jimmy Garoppolo look competent, rather than Jimmy Garoppolo that have a dozen more interceptions by now if Deebo didn't do what he did there, right? So like that shows some intellect right there from beating zone, helping your quarterback out. But
yeah,
do we have some Noel too? Noel is. I said, do we have some Noel too? Noel as well.
Yeah. So I didn't plan on doing Noel, but when I cut this game up, he just impressed me so much that I said, and obviously Hutchinson's getting, drawing most of the coverage off, but Noel did a little bit of that, but I mean, he made some really nice plays in this game too. So I thought it was worth us taking a look at. God, that just hurts to watch that drop though.
Yeah, Jalen Noel's a true sophomore. This dude's got tons of speed. He was one of the more productive wide receivers in the nation as a freshman last year, like just filtering for freshmen in terms of, weighted dom and all that kind of stuff. It was obviously like Xavier Worthy, Dejon Stribling at Washington State, and then Jalen Noel. So he had a productive freshman season, had some accolades in terms of the Iowa State program.
Yeah, he's got a free release right there. Definitely easier problem to solve.
Yeah, it's a nice deep ball that he catches here later. I think it's either like a 50-yard pass or a 50-yard pass and touchdown.
Yeah, that first play was in traffic, which seemed I again with the kind of grainy, jumpy frames here. It was mind-boggling how he came up with that. That was interesting. You had one diagrammed out there too, and that looked like you got a good view of the releases. I don't know if you want to go back to that one.
Yeah,
but I was kind of telling which one he was.
It's this one. He's
yeah.
I think he starts off in the slot. Yep,
Can you go back like 2 more frames?
There. Right.
Can you go back to like the start of the snap there?
Yeah.
Because there were some good releases in from that bunch.
Yep. But yeah, I'll kind of stop a little bit after the. So he doesn't have anyone on him at the line. The safety picks him up.
Yeah, he's sinking his hips in there really good though.
Yeah.
He kind of didn't a little like drifted upfield with that break though.
Right.
And you could see like if he cuts that sharp, I don't know if his route was supposed to get. Yeah, I don't know if his route was supposed to get to the sticks there, but if he cuts that sharp, you see as the minute he sinks his hip, it's great, and then he like jumps 2 yards upfield a little bit with that, and all of a sudden the DB's in his hip pocket. Whereas if he's able to like really break that sharp at the 24 there, he probably has a window, an NFL at least window for open.
Yeah. That number 14 is not Noel though. I don't know who that is. 13. Noel was 13. Yeah, that was an error for me to put that in this tape. But
I thought I was looking at 13 on that.
No, it was
lunch break.
Yeah, no, it was. He was. He didn't get the ball though. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. Yeah. That was the one that
cool.
you had it diagrammed.
Yeah, but it's good to look at the route.
Yeah, I think it was good to put that play in there. You had it diagrammed out really well.
Kind of the same thing on that break, although you don't know if is he supposed to be, doing kind of like a corner break there, or feel like maybe more separation if he comes to the sideline.
Yeah, see it again.
You can stop. Here's a stem.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good move right there.
He's
trying to get he's trying to get into the sticks. He's got to put
right.
Yeah, he needs to get outside. It's a really good move to get the cornerback who's got outside leverage to bite, and then just step in front of him.
Yeah, he definitely wins the route. Almost gets the first down, but
yeah.
Decker's. I don't know. I like Decker's, but he definitely misses some balls here. Like that's a big time play. You're down 10 points. He's won the route clearly.
Yep.
That hurts.
That's that off platform throw for him because obviously he's left-handed, rolling right. He kind of switches around and doesn't get it all the way.
Now I get. I mean, now I get why they throw that in the pro day. But it's really funny because you see that everywhere. I mean, I think Kyle, you said you like Delara a bit. You see Delara be able to make those types of throws. I also see Delara make I don't think Delara is going to be an NFL prospect personally because of some of I think he makes some bad decisions, but you see that sometimes now. Like everybody's got a good off-platform throw. It looks like Decker there struggled with that a little bit. There you go. There's the speed.
Pulling away from him as he.
Good concentration to go up and get that in stride.
Yeah, I think they do a replay on this too. I mean, nice release, right?
Yep.
I don't know. The way things are going with quarterbacks now, though, Delara could play another 2 years.
Does he use his arms there for a swipe, or is he just kind of ducking through?
I thought he swiped.
You love to see them.
Definitely left, right. Yeah, he did some kind of.
Yeah, he kind of does a little swim there. Okay, so he does do a little bit of a chop with the left arm there.
Well, I
can't tell if he's chopping. Yeah, I can't tell if he's chopping or if he's kind of just reducing that arm. But For example, like a guy who does that really, really well is DK, right? He's just violent with his hand fighting. Pickens too, you see them just be the aggressor, and it's not always
So
it's kind of a rare trait.
Yeah. So Tennessee's trying to stem on him, and he just pushes the arm down as he goes by.
Yeah.
Move.
I think he's just running past it here, but he earned a release at least, right?
Don't confuse that ugly orange with us. Call them Tennessee instead of Texas over there.
That's about it for Noel. One more ball he catches here. Can we look at one more player and then, we'll get off? What do you guys think? You guys want to watch Ewers real quick, or do you want to watch Bijan?
Don't put me on tape with Bijan because I'm gonna be too controversial.
With Bijan?
Yeah. I think he's got nuance.
Why? Because you like Gibbs more? All right. Well, now I think we should look at him, or we could look at Hutchinson or Levitt.
Hey, if you think it'll be good, but if people want to hear my thoughts on Bijan, there's a
all right. Well, now we got to do it. I apparently didn't upload the Ewers film anyway, so we'll do a little Bijan. I'm sure we don't need to explain who Bijan is to anybody at this point. But I
think this was a good game for him.
Are you putting? This is a nice game here. Are you putting Gibbs over Bijan?
I think. Well, okay, so definitely go listen to the Saturday to Sunday podcast. We talk a lot about these guys, these prospects. I've talked a lot about Bijan there. I've talked a lot about Gibbs there. If I use athleticism and size as sort of a pass-fail threshold rather than sort of like getting extra credit for being bigger, stronger, faster. In a threshold metric, yes, Gibbs would be my number one. I love his movement skills. I love his problem solving. He's a better receiver. He's got better routes. He's a more well-rounded player. Bijan has the size and speed that you have to kind of give a little bit of extra credit to, and so he'd still be probably top, but like it could really shift pretty quick too, right? Like, if we start seeing Gibbs weigh in more than we think he is, faster than we think he is. I mean, he's shown long speed that people doubted before, and he gets draft capital before. Like I really could, or the landing spot, I really could see, Gibbs being draft for me. I guess he drafting Gibbs ahead of Bijan, but Bijan's a really good player, right? Like, and I think what people get most excited about are plays like this, where, hey, this is a great play. He's out in the open field. He's a brilliant open field player, and he knows how to, use his tools. He's good at, like, look at that. I mean, there's just that cut and the way that he picks his
220 pounds, right?
Yeah, works through contact like that. You're just going to get extremely excited. Oh man, that's really good inside running there.
That's just what I love about him, man. No one's better, like in the in the phone booth than Bijan. That's
I think Deuce Vaughn is better in a phone booth than Bijan, personally.
You think who is what?
Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn is way better.
Oh, okay. I haven't like really ground film on Deuce because it just
he's tiny, but like he gets lost in the bodies and he knows exactly where he needs to be. This is a beautiful catch too, by the way. Like,
I mean,
just.
This is what
soft hands. Look at that.
You can split him out wide. He can be cornerbacks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The catch point
Well, I think his roots aren't quite at the level of a guy like Gibbs. I think his patience, for running isn't at the level of Gibbs. Like, I think Gibbs is just more intuitive. We're nitpicking here though, right? Like, I mean, Bijan's the 101. Bijan's probably your dynasty RB1. Like, I can nitpick all I want about him, but the facts are the facts there, right? Like, just look at that play. Like, just look at that play.
Yeah, nothing should be a 2-yard loss, right?
I mean,
Instead, it's a 5-yard gain.
I think you get tackled there as an NFL player unless you're Saquon or Bijan, right? And like that's the thing is, like, I think you get tackled there as an NFL player in that decision making, but you're also Bijan Robinson, like you're Saquon Barkley. Like, maybe you don't get tackled there because you can stiff arm a player to the ground, an NFL player to the ground, right? Like Derrick Henry, right? Like some people, big, good, fast, strong enough, My big thing with Bijan is I don't think he has like nuance in his movement skills. Like he's violent. He's he makes big dynamic moves, and sometimes I think what you need is, less of a jump cut and more of just a plant and go, right? And so I've seen him kind of like overrun not run, but like over, kind of like move a little bit too far across, the hole, or and then have to kind of like create a new solution there, or even just stop his momentum, because he wants to make these sharp, violent cuts. When if he was just able to like redirect what he's got, like so this is a great show of that,
This is
because I
him
think he's
showing
showing
some nuance, honestly.
yeah, he's
Little
showing
movement,
growth here.
head fake.
Yeah, there's no
But
cuts
you're
here.
right. It's not his go-to.
This is plant and uphill. So like this is growth to me in Bijan. This is what I've been wanting to see this year. Old Bijan kind of plants, stops, and redirects too far upfield, right? This is Bijan coming through and scraping his blocks without slowing his momentum down, right? If you look his tape from last year, right, you'll see it show up a lot more. A run like this, he's kind of cuts up and back across the grain to the middle of the field and tries to win in the open field, and that works sometimes, but a lot of times like defenders get their mark and they can get them. This is good understanding of being like what you need from the running back from this play, and just being able to just roll through contact. So I love that plant uphill, violent downhill running. That's great. Like that's a really good play right there.
Yeah, I was impressed with this tape, and I hadn't put a ton of energy into scouting Bijan since he was a recruit, really, and a freshman, just because it was so clear that he was dominant and going to be a high level NFL player, that I didn't have as much value in like really scouting him as I did, some of the guys that there's more interesting, there's more controversy with.
This is a good game for him.
Yeah, I think he's shown a lot of growth since he was a freshman.
Yeah, this is a really good game for him. He's had a few moments this year where, I've still, like I said, still have, areas that I wish he'd grow in. I think we're seeing that a little bit, but yeah, I don't know if you guys are, follow like Matt Waldman or anything too, but he put something out on Bijan, I think this week that, I felt like I was on an island on, but it's about that smart decision making, right? I think he's in this game, and this is big because this is a close game, right? Like this is them closing the game out. That's big to be able to have, awareness of what he needs to do. He doesn't need to hit a big play here, right? Like he needs to get the chains moving, and he needs to just keep the offense on schedule, right? Like he doesn't need to get 8 yards here. He needs to get 4.
Yeah, interestingly, and I think Roshan got a lot of the final carries, but I think it was game was in hand. They were both being effective. I know you're not going to see those here, but after that, I think that might be the last Bijan
this
play.
Might be.
The very last play.
This 3rd and 1 goes to Roshan. The game icing run goes to Roshan.
Roshan's a good prospect too, by the way. He's getting overshadowed, but I think Roshan made the Bruce Feldman freak list, so you gotta at least have ears to the ground on Roshan.
Yeah, I'm a fan. And then Jeff and I were talking last week about I made a comment on Twitter, that's where it was, about Roshan being the RB1 there next year and not Jaden or the freshman. But Jeff thinks he's going to come out, and I can see it. He's good enough. It's good enough to get some late draft capital or priority signing. I get a role. All right.
And I'll just jump in and say I let Jeff talk through that film just because he's a little bit better at it than I am. Yeah. But I agree with pretty much everything he said. I've had those doubts about Bijan, and especially how he reads those kind of outside zone looks and stuff like that. I do think he's the 1.01 in at least non-super flex, definitely non-super flex, maybe super flex. He is the best running back in the class. I just don't know if he's Saquon.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the best running back prospect ever. Like some people want to crown him already. I'm not
Somebody
there
said
yet.
since Barry Sanders the other day, and I just like I was like, you didn't. You're too young to know. Like you didn't watch Barry Sanders, did you? In college or in the NFL, right? Like, man, you got to go back and watch those like Barry Sanders cut-ups. I mean, nobody's Barry Sanders, and nobody ever will be Barry Sanders. But I think he can be Saquon. I even because Saquon had his flaws too, right? So I think he could be Saquon. And the thing is, like, is he that freakishly special that he can get away with these mistakes at times? And I think the answer is yes. You know, we saw it on that run, right? Like even an NFL back in an NFL scheme, even one of the better NFL backs in the NFL schemes gets tackled, you know, on that decision to go outside and trying to take the linebacker or the edge or whoever he stiff armed down there one-on-one, right? And then after that, beating the safety to the corner. You know, he got that. That's great. I could see like a couple people doing that on the NFL. I could see Nick Chubb potentially doing that, although he wouldn't do that. He'd make a better decision. You see somebody like Saquon do that, right? And then you see someone like Miles Sanders try that and miss, right? And I think he could be good enough to get away with that. But, you know, I mentioned Matt Waldman's piece, right? And I think it was a great study of it because these are great players and great players as they are, but their ceilings could be so much better if they learn just like if they learn to run like Nick Chubb, right? Like if they can learn to run like Nick Chubb, we could be seeing, you know, an all-time great come in. And I think part of the curse and the blessing of being that athletic, that big, that freakish is that you don't have to learn those nuances. Whereas like one of my favorite movers, like Mo Ibrahim, right? Like he needs every ounce of that intuition that he's developed to just kind of just churn 100-yard games. Like he is not going to be the most athletic prospect. He's probably not going to really show enough to be a day 2 pick, but from, you know, like the way he runs, his intuition, his skill, his sort of the quote unquote instincts as a runner are so well developed because he doesn't have like an athleticism to lean on. Like Eric Gray, for example, that's somebody who's got that athleticism that he leans on. Great open field, you know, space player, had a huge game last weekend. I still don't know if I've seen enough of that tough inside running, smart decision makings to, you know, to really say, you know, is he going to make it in the NFL? You know, and we'll see players like that, you know, maybe kind of take advantage of an opportunity here and there, right? Like Miles Sanders, for example, he hasn't been a disappointment, but he hasn't really been a success either. And then is he going to get, you know, a second contract somewhere, right? These players can be athletic and flash and make plays and be fantasy producers even for a little while, but how are they going to have a career, right? I think that's like kind of one of the more interesting things. Love to hear that I'm not alone out there, Kyle, that, you know, you've got some of the same thoughts there on Bijan. I think it'll be really great for us to, you know, potentially even just get on there and like dissect this like single plays of Bijan for 30 minutes and just be like, here's what he's seen. This is, you know, freeze frame, stop. Here's where the gaps are. Here's where the blocks are. Here's the scheme. Here's what he's reading on the second level, third level. Here's how his plan of attack. And then like cut over and be like, here's what Saquon does. Here's what Nick Chubb does. Man, I get too geeked in it.
And it's not just the film, guys. I mean, analytics wise, Noah Hills at No More Parties has a podcast episode on Bijan and how his doubts about him, and a Breakout Finder article that are both fantastic.
Yeah,
good call out there. Definitely found him this offseason. I was like, he's got a good follow for me. I'm like, yeah,
absolutely. One of my favorites.
Yeah, Noah's got an interesting perspective for sure. I love the deep dive on the data and his pod's been really great. You know, and then we say all this, but like also we're, you know, are we getting prospect fatigue on Bijan, right? Like, yes, he's got flaws, but like also he's a high level running back prospect. And
well, I mean, let's close the conversation around it.
Yeah.
It's not about like trying to tear a player down or anything, right? Like I think we're all in agreement that Bijan's your 101. Bijan's maybe even a dynasty startup 101, if you want to go at it. Like, we understand the talent of this player. I think what I do this for, when I do it for receivers, running backs, I want to understand, like, how do they win, right? Because one of the hardest and most underrated things about fantasy and football in general is that the fit, right? The fit in the offense, and like what does this team want of that player, and how do they run their scheme? Like, do they want Frank Gore back there, or do they want Miles Sanders, right? And I think it's really just knowing, what does this player bring to the table? What are we looking for improvement, right? They develop, right? So what if we start seeing some development from Bijan Robinson, right? Like, I think this game showed some of that, right? So if this game is showing that, and he builds on that, and that's how he plays down the stretch in bowl season, like, hey, that's arrow up, right? Like, yeah, he's already the 101, but maybe he's showing this growth and development even better, right? It's just understanding what these players do, how they win, maybe what they don't do well. How does that fit in? What are they growing? What's their development?
Yeah, I love it, Jeff. I appreciate it. And you've got a lot more experience, with significant, serious film scouting than Kyle and I do. So I love the perspective. So we'll hop real quick into our C2C content here. We do a little bit of C2C waivers every week. A lot of these will also apply to your college football fantasy teams. I got a couple, but Kyle, you want to drop your guy first?
Well, let me drop off here, guys, because I hear the baby waking up.
Yeah,
so I got to get going. But you guys are going to carry the C2C stuff. I'm so lost back there. Yeah. There's a reason I follow you all. So, all right. Well,
we appreciate you, brother.
Carry it home, guys.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump on my guy real quick. I took about 30 seconds to figure this out. Probably in a bad way, if we're being honest. But I went ahead and threw Colin Lacey on there from University of Southern Alabama. Mm-hmm. Only rostered in 2% of Fantrax leagues. According to Fantrax, that number just went up by 2% from apparently 0 week. But yeah, he's averaging 20 fantasy points a game at the wide receiver position. Is just coming off a big performance against UL Monroe with 13 targets, 12 receptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown. His second straight game with 100 receiving yards, and his third game out of 5 with a touchdown. So he's been an impressive producer. That 2% roster really surprised me. So figured I'd just throw him in there.
No, I love it, man. So I got a few. The first one, this is the real gem, and I got to shout out Du Bois, right? What's that? That's Kevin is Du Bois, right?
Kevin Coleman.
And, I love him. He's awesome. So he threw this guy out there last week after a big game, and then he's followed it up with just more production. And it is, gosh, I'm probably going to butcher his name. It is Gadsden. I think it's Do you remember his name, Kyle? It's
the Syracuse wide receiver, right? Or is it
Omar? I don't want to butcher his first name. I know I had him pulled up, but Syracuse wide receiver, multiple big games in a row right now. His father was a stud NFL player. He's big, fast, under recruited, and seems to
it's Oronde.
Oronde. Thank you. I wrote down his last name, not the first name. Yeah, so he's got the pedigree, he's got production, he's only a sophomore, so a lot to like about picking him up. He's still out there in a lot of leagues. And then I threw Amari Jones in. Jones got hype a couple years ago as a running back, and now Georgia Southern has switched him to wide receiver, and he has, I think, 4 games in a row with at least 5 receptions, 2 of them over 100 yards, really coming on with the position switch. Older guy, but definitely good for CFF. And I threw in Marion Luke.
Georgia Southern offense has been pretty productive.
Have you watched them? I haven't really.
I just see a lot of guys in CFF that are putting up points. LaDamian Webb or both those guys we just mentioned.
Yeah, and then there's another wide receiver there, right? That's been tearing it up. Anyways, so other guys I had here, Marion Lukes. Marion Lukes is Lou Nichols' backup for Central Michigan, and Lou Nichols has been out. He was great in relief this week. We don't know what the injury is for Nichols, so could be a few weeks to get out of him, producing at a very high level. I threw in Devin Mockabee. I think he's Purdue. Does that sound right, Kyle?
I'm not sure.
Mockabee, he popped up in some of my data scouting in terms of being a really high producer with Purdue. Yeah, and yards after contact guy. And he has multiple big games right now for Purdue. He's kind of taken over. I forget who their lead back was to start the year, but it wasn't him. It was Christian something. And, Maccabee's really run away with it. And then, just kind of see guys that were under-owned. I actually found Ryan O'Keefe out there in some of my leagues, and he has 2 consecutive really big games at UCF. You got anything on O'Keefe, Kyle?
No, but I do have one more player I can bring up here.
Yeah, love it.
That's a true sophomore running back at Virginia Tech, Malachi Thomas. Really came on at the end of the year last year as a true freshman, and then was injured to start the season and just came back 2 weeks ago. Now has 20 points in both of his first 2 games back. He's been impressive in the receiving game. He's had 13 targets in those 2 games and caught 11 balls. And they've been tough matchups against Pittsburgh and Miami. So he could take off even more against some easier defenses down the stretch.
Yeah, Malachi is one of those guys that, I'm sure I drafted him and dropped him during the season in the league, with at least in all the ones with open waivers, right? I don't have the patience to wait on guys there. Awesome. I appreciate that, Kyle. So I'm throwing this last segment in here. I think this is a fun one to do. So we don't talk about cross-league trades enough. We just don't see a ton of them. They're tough to do. So I'll lead off with mine. I'll put my chin out there. And this was a trade that I did, and I hated every moment of it. But I am the defending champion, and I'm in an arms race with the number 2, and I'd like to take the pot down again. So I traded my man. You got to do it sometimes. Traded my man, Braylon Allen, who I love to death. I've been on him since training camp, right, a year ago. And I think he's going to be the dynasty, top 5 dynasty running back as soon as he gets into the league. And Tet McMillan, pre-Tet McMillan breakout, which I was saying earlier, the guy had offered, he wanted Jalen McMillan, but Jalen McMillan producing for me, right? So I thought Tet was the smarter move. It looks like I maybe was stupid on that. And I got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Dalvin Cook. Hopefully I will get multiple seasons of top 20 out of Amon-Ra St. Brown. What do you think, Kyle? Was it horrible? Was it understandable?
I mean, I love Amon-Ra at this point. I mean, he's proven me wrong time and time again. So I gotta back him at this point. But man, that's awful to be on that side of the trade where you trade somebody away and then they just immediately go off.
As I'm pushing the send button, they blow up. Yeah, it hurts. And Tet looking like maybe the wide receiver one in that class right now. So that'll sting in a couple of years. But for now, I'm just going to block it out.
Yeah, right, I think the wide receiver side, you've definitely won. The Braylon for Cook, that worries me a little bit. Yeah. I'm not sure how much more Dalvin Cook has left in him.
Yeah, I don't know. The guy offered me Henry, and then I put Cook out there. But I wonder if I should have just taken Henry. I think Henry's a freak. He's probably going to run for 3 more years. Yeah,
I mean, if it gets to a championship this year, it's worth it.
That's it. It's all about the money, right? All right. Tell me about yours. Is this a you trade or something you saw on
this is a me trade. Opposite situation for me. My NFL side's struggling. My college side is firing on all cylinders. I'm 5-1 now, 6-1 now. Second most points for in the league. This is the program C2C actually. So massive league. Really wanted to sell out, try and make it to the playoff and have a chance. So I got rid of Mark Andrews, which sucked. That hurt. But I really needed a college tight end.
Yeah.
I was averaging like 6 points from my tight end position, and I knew if I could find that guy, that might elevate me to winning the league. So I messaged to get Dalton Kincaid. I was trying to get Dalton Kincaid, and he was like, "Is there any way I can get Mark Andrews?" And I was like, I guess you have Darren Waller. I can downgrade from Andrews to Waller. So I sent Mark Andrews for Darren Waller, Daniel Bellinger, Dalton Kincaid, and Kayshon Boutte. I think all of those players that I got really proved something this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Dalton Kincaid had 16 receptions and 200 yards.
Did you get to play him this weekend?
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
50 points for my tight end position. Kayshon Boutte had his best game of the season, 6 receptions for 100-some yards. And then Daniel Bellinger actually just led the Giants in receiving today. Scored a touchdown.
Oh, nice. I didn't see that yet. I saw a short king touchdown, but then I've been focused on this.
So, yeah, Darren Waller's on bye, but the rest of them have all proven pretty well. I'm curious what you think because I need an outside perspective.
I don't hate it. I think we think alike. Like I know this from playing with you too. Like you'll pay if you're gonna win, right? Like you'll pay to get the assets you need. And I think a lot of guys that I play with are scared to do that, right? Like they're scared to take a trade if the kind of trade that you get roasted on Twitter for, which like we both probably would here, right? But I love Mark Andrews. He's literally one of my favorite players, and I've always been above consensus on him just because I love having an elite tight end. And I've always been like gun shy with Kelsey just because like, when's the cliff going to come? It's got to come sometime, right?
And I have Lamar too. It was a scary stack that I had to break up.
Yeah, but I got to say, I love the return. I think you got Waller, who has elite upside, although, he's been hobbled a little bit. I think you got Bellinger. You got the young guy that's already producing that might have a bright future. At least you got like a middling tight end out of him, right? Like at least a tight end too, probably for the next 6 years. That's what I think about Bellinger right now anyways. I'm kind of a fan. Kincaid's going to win you your championship. Can't complain about that, as long as he stays healthy. And then, Boutte, I think you bought super low on, right? I think that there's a point like last year, if you tried this trade, before Mark Andrews, just going nuclear this year again, and before Kayshon Boutte hitting the brick wall where, that might have been an almost even trade for some people, like people were really, really high on Boutte when he was going off this freshman year, and that kind of sustained until this year, like really sentiment has soured. He's like no longer, he was a wide receiver one still for a lot of people until the past 3 months. So myself included, beginning of the season, not now, I got Addison over him, but man, is anyone going to be surprised if he's a perennial dynasty wide receiver one? No. So True. Yeah, I don't hate it at all, man. But that's hard. That's hard to do. It's hard. Hurts to give up your Boutte.
I didn't think I was going to get Boutte, honestly. I was hoping because everything started with just Kincaid and Waller,
right?
And then I was just kind of adding pieces to try and get there to Andrews. And I was like, maybe I can get Izzy Abonaconda out of him. He'll give me 20-some points every week in college fantasy. And then the guy I was talking to, he's just like, I'll give you Boutte. And I was like, okay.
Yep. Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he said, I'll give you Boutte. And I said, just throw in Bellinger and it's a done deal.
Wise. You're a good trader, man. All right, cool, man. Well, look, I appreciate you coming on, Kyle. You want to tell the people again where they can find you?
Absolutely. On Twitter at KL_fantasy, online at theundroppables.com. Keeping it chill right now. Just started a new job, so been really busy. So haven't been able to write much, but you'll definitely see me around draft time next year with a whole bunch of draft information, a big old draft kit for the Undroppables. So looking forward to that.
And we hope to see you on here as much as you can make it. I know that your work schedule might conflict, but it's a pleasure having you on. And
I'd love to.
Yeah, I think you're an awesome fit for what we're doing here. So, all right, everybody, I hope you enjoy the rest of your football. It's Sunday night. Let's watch some games. And as always, I'm your host, Eric at EK Baller. You can find me on Twitter. I'm always there dropping content, dropping data, dropping film. Please like and subscribe to this. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd love to someday have enough of a following to monetize this and not be working for free, but we're doing it because we love it anyway. So, all right, everybody. Peace out. Yeah. What are you doing for work?